Hi guys, and welcome back. So in today's video, I'm going to be coloring this character in Copic markers. My first tip for Copic marker art is one that I learned the hard way, but I actually drew this on a separate sheet of paper. I used a drawing paper. It's just a pad that I've had for a while and wanted to use. But a drawing paper is going to hold up better if you're figuring out a pose or whatnot, and seems to help me with graphite drawing as opposed to using a Col-Erase, because sometimes I just want to use a mechanical pencil. But I then transfer that with a light box. If you draw directly on your paper, which is a totally fine thing to do a lot of the time, it will leave dents. More so on like a thicker cardstock and watercolor paper, which I do use a lot of the time. But yeah, I think it's something that really helped me out with this piece specifically, just because it was kind of complicated to draw, and I was able to ink it with a Col-Erase colored pencil by using my light box, and that is so it blends a little bit better with the drawing I'm doing. I've already started to go in here and lay in the first colors on the skin tone, and the whole idea behind this piece is that I want to do that thing that you see on a really sunny day. It shows up more in pictures than in person, but there's a really saturated orangey color like the sun on one area, and then in shadow it's very like cool blue. And I've never really taken the plunge and tried to draw it in Copics specifically. I've done it digitally a couple times as tests, but I want to be able to do that. I think that's a cool thing, and I wanted the skill. And I have not done a full Copic illustration like this in a minute. I've been getting a little bit more into it again lately, which I'm really enjoying, but that means a lot of my markers are dry. Before I went on that internship last year, I did refill them all. They're all dry again, so a lot of this is just me picking the right color and then finding one kind of close to it because it's dry, and even though I have the refills, not refilling it, so, you know. And at this point, I was not sure it was going to work out. Like, I knew I would end up with something, and I knew it would be a learning experience, but I wasn't sure if it was actually going to turn out as having that lighting effect here, especially because the markers on the shaded side were really running out. But I did have several reference pictures for this, and that's my tip number 2. If you do portrait stuff like this, I would heavily suggest taking some selfies whenever you're ever in a cool lighting condition. This one, the reference photo, was actually me in the back of our Jeep. My family's been taking like Sunday drives during quarantine, and so I get some good lighting during that because it's getting darker out later, and the light comes in the side, and I got that really cool orange effect. A lot of this is me also working off of color theory and the Copic swatch book. If you plan on working with Copics or alcohol markers or something in that vein, I highly suggest having a color sheet or a color book that you can refer to so you know what the marker looks like when it's dry. You can actually see it in the frame there, which I didn't realize was in frame, so the more you know. I've only ever drawn this character once before. I can put up a picture if you haven't seen him, but I really like this design. I think it's pretty cool. And so the basis for this drawing was, well, if he's got these cool like anglerfish bits. I don't even know the proper term. I probably could have looked it up before doing the voiceover, but you know how it is. But basically, you know how like an anglerfish has that light niblet at the end of its fin? That, but make it a cool hairstyle. One of the things to keep in mind when working in Copics is that each kind of paper you use does have a limit as to how much ink it'll absorb before you start just kind of carving through your layers. Normally it's about 5 to 8 layers before things start to get a little funky, and you can't really put a lighter color on top of a darker color. So a lot of this is just having a lot of practice. I am going to be doing some videos soon about if it's your first time working with Copics, or, you know, just review if you have worked with them in the past, but I worked solely in Copics for a really long time, more so before I started this channel. The start of this channel marked when I first started to work with watercolor, but yeah, Copic markers were my main thing, and I learned a lot from that, and that's what I've taken with me into watercolor and the mixed media work I do now, and it was really nice to be able to get back into it again. One of the things that was difficult here was working with the light and shadow. Like, I wanted to have that large shadow, like the shift in between the two light and shaded areas, and truthfully, if I had done this digitally, would it have been easier? Yes. But I think part of the appeal of working traditionally is like, it's a physical thing that you can now hold and look at, and it looks different when you put it under different light sources and whatnot, but it's also just like the troubleshooting aspect of it, I guess. If I was gonna do a digital piece, I kind of know how to achieve any sort of look just by using layer modes and whatnot. This is me just making stuff up on the fly, which I think is kind of fun. One of the things I did not take into account for his hair, though, is that part of it should have been in really bright light, and I do sort of plan that out originally. On his right, our left, it should be in really bright sunlight, which I do go back and fix it after this. But here, I am not thinking about it at all, and just using BG11 to blend everything. Which, if you're thinking about it, if the, I don't know, the anglerfish pieces, fins, what have you, that look like hair, some sort of filament, I guess, I digress, are like semi-transparent so they can glow, there would probably be some more funky light dispersion things happening there. But you know what? It's a drawing, and we're just gonna go with it. I tried really hard. Could I have done a mock-up digitally? Yes. Certainly 100% for sure. I'm also notorious for not doing that very well. You know how it is. But yeah, one of the very cool things about this piece is that I didn't write down any of the colors I used for the first one, even though it took me a long time to do. So I was really just making up what I remembered the colors being for like his hair and stuff, because those are the same colors. Like in the area that's in shadow, it's the same colors as the first drawing. But yeah. Also, this shoulder was a little funky to do. It was turning out like really, really round. Could I have taken a reference photo? Yes. But am I going to crop this so it's above the shoulder on all the pictures I take for social media? Also yes. I was actually considering cutting out the finished piece with an X-Acto knife and putting it on some sort of background, like a black background or just something, so he would stand out a bit more from the white and the shadow would look a bit better. So let me know your thoughts on that. It's not for anything, just a drawing of my character to have, you know? This was actually the second day I was working on the piece, and I decided to come back in and darken things up on the shadow side because even though the value is on the cooler side, it's actually not that much darker than the light side. I think if I were to create this piece again, I probably wouldn't add the yellow undertones on the left side, or I would go in with a purple undertone on the right side first. Now, a lot of this section is me going in with Col-Erase Pencils, and the cool thing about these is that they have a pretty low wax content, so if I did want to go over an area with Copics again, I would be able to do that. It would blend out the pencil I already laid down, but I still would be able to mess with things a little bit if I wanted to. I also noticed since I was drawing at a bit of an angle, the shading on the face was kind of flat, and so I had to go in and adjust some of those angles so it looked like he had an actual face and not a flat anime head. And then I'm trying to add in that stripe of saturated color between the light and the dark side, but I don't know. I think that's something I should have done in Copic, I feel like it's a little harsh here. It does have a cool illustrative effect, but I'm not sure how I feel about it. Also, I am blending out the pencils in several spots with the side of my hand, which is a technique, but if you plan on doing Copics on top of that afterwards, the oils from your hand will end up in the paper and the Copic will not lay right. It's the same thing for watercolor, so you can blend out colored pencil and graphite, all that sort of stuff with a hand rather than a Q-tip or a tissue, but it doesn't let you use any sort of wet media on top again. I mean, you can, it'll just look weird, but you know. And then here I had compared it to the sketch again and realized that I had to do some tweaking on the face, and referring back to that reference photo just to kind of see what areas should be the darkest. The other plus side of using the Col-Erase pencils as opposed to Premiere pencils is that I can erase stuff if I don't like the way it turns out, which I do here on the eyelashes because I didn't like the way they turned out, and so I redrew them all. So I actually held a suggestion box on Instagram for a name for this character because he's been kicking around unnamed for a multitude of weeks now, and we got some great entries. I've decided to go with Dalmar, which is actually a French name, I believe, meaning from the pond, which I thought was fitting because he's a fish. Fun stuff. So thank you so much for that name suggestion, Jade. And then here I'm just going in and adding the final highlights with the Uniball Signo Broad white gel pen, and I'm paying very close attention to my reference photo here so I can get the lighting just right. And then as one final note, I have updated my commission prices for 2020. I will leave a link to that in the description box down below. If you're watching this when I'm releasing it, which is Saturday, November something, I will be able to get it done before Christmas if you're thinking of that as a gift idea. But yeah, so here is the finished piece. I really hope you enjoyed seeing the process and that you'll stick around for the next one. I'll see you then, alright? Bye!